Sure. My name is Kim Burgdorf. I am the leader of our Global Learning and Development Quality Program for Expedia Group. We serve a base of about 15,000 agents around the world, so you can imagine how complex that gets to try to deliver learning solutions and programs to that size of base. We've got about 50 plus people on the team that do a number of things, and one of the main areas on my team that we have is learning design. And on our design team, we spend a lot of time thinking about innovation. And so we're really excited to bring some of those learnings to you today. And I'm honored to introduce Jonathan Meisburg, who is the senior instructional designer on my team. He's one of my more creative folks. He's always sending me ideas and things in email, and it's like, can we do this? Can we push the envelope? Can we pay for it? Can we, I can show you the emails. It's actually really cool. So he's always thinking, and he's bringing new things together. And so this is an idea that he brought to us probably about maybe 6 months ago or so. And he said, I can build it myself, it's not going to cost that much, and I want to give it a try. So we said, let's do it, let's go ahead and do it. So we have, as many of you do, problems to solve every day in the service organization that we're in, and we're trying to find ways to enhance our learning through technology. So we're really excited to bring this concept to you today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jonathan, and he's going to take you through the session. Jonathan?
Great, thank you, Kim. Hey everyone, I'm Jonathan Meisburg, and like she said, I am a senior instructional designer at Expedia Group. And this session is all about enhancing the learning activities that you have using NFC technology, and I'm going to demonstrate how we personally did it. So, like I said, I am an instructional designer, and I build training for customer service agents that work in call centers. And after they go outside of the call center, they hit the floor and they have to support our customers. Now we measure this performance based off of a metric known as CSAT, or customer satisfaction. Now you probably think, duh, this is important, but the real thing to think about is, by a show of hands, how many of you in the room have ever had a bad experience with a company and didn't tell anyone? Right, doesn't happen. If something bad happens with a brand, in 2018 you go online and that's what ends up on Yelp, that's what ends up on Facebook. And so we really care about CSAT at Expedia. So with that in mind, we send out these surveys to our customers after a support interaction to see what they thought of the support interaction. And if it doesn't go well, this is what it looks like, just online. So it's our job as instructional designers to give our customer service agents the tools and the information that they need to provide customers with satisfactory experiences. So what does this look like today? Well, one of the tools that we give our agents is we provide them with role play. And I guess it's not a tool, but we provide them with role-playing activity. And the way it works, as you're probably aware, is we take two agents, we put them together, and they role-play a common customer issue. And this is somewhat effective, but there's a few problems with it. If you're a new agent, you're being asked to basically be a professional actor. Like, just pretend to be what it's like to know exactly how to do this role. Just go for it. See what you can do. It's very difficult. There's not a whole lot of scaffolding involved. And for those learning professionals out there in the audience, you understand that scaffolding is important. Putting training wheels on the learning experience for the learner is important. And so my hypothesis for enhancing role play was that if we provided agents somehow with prepared responses that they could select from and try to decide which response is the best response to go with, that they could model that response. And then later on, when they're more competent, when they're not so new anymore, we can take those training wheels off, and we can help them to craft their own custom responses on their own. And I knew that technology could help facilitate this. I'd seen a million different scenario-based activities built in Storyline, where you see a scenario and you're giving lots of options and you click the right one. But I really didn't want to go down that path because I didn't want to replace in-person role play. there's this social learning theory that many of you, I'm sure, are familiar with, called Bandura's social learning theory. And it states that we learn best when we observe others' behavior and the outcomes of that behavior. And I wanted agents to be able to continue to model correct behavior by watching and hearing what other agents had to say in the classroom, and not just stare at a computer screen. I know that might be controversial to say at a technology conference, but I'm gonna say it. So I was thinking, instead of replacing it with storyline, how could we instead enhance this role-play experience? And finally, how many people have you trained before that pretend to look like this, but they're actually hiding behind something? This happens, you know, and I witnessed this. I traveled to several call centers and saw agents that were being put through in-person role play, and this is the kind of agent I found some of the time. And I believe the reason is because they're brand new, and they're being thrown into a role, and they're being told, hey, pretend to be this thing you don't even know how to pretend to be. So I knew that, you know, if it's one of the ways that I go about finding a learning solution is, it needs to work on me at minimum. And if I can't pay attention to it, other people aren't going to be able to pay attention to it either. So I wanted it to be engaging. And we know that as learning professionals, that when training is interesting, when it's inspiring, when learners are asking questions, learning outcomes improve. So engagement is really important, and that's another piece of the equation that I knew we had to solve for. So around the same time that we were having these discussions about what could we do about our role play, I came across a few different things. And one is called Nintendo Amiibo. And I don't know how many of you in the room are familiar with Super Smash Brothers. I got one guy and a couple people in the back. Oh, yes! All right. Love the tech crowd at DevLearn. I asked this question somewhere else and I got blank stares. And I'm like, they're like Beanie Babies that you collect, but not anymore? Okay, never. So these things were all the rage last year, maybe the last 2 years. And you take one and you scan it over your Nintendo console, and it pulls data from the Amiibo to your game. Things like your saved progress in a game, things like your high score, your win-loss ratio, other character attributes. So suddenly, you know, you have your character and it's got everything that you want on here. And I just thought that was really wild, you know? I'm like, wow, if I was a kid, I'd be like, wow, this is blowing my mind. So let me show you a video of how it works, just so you can see, for those of you unfamiliar.
Let's say you head over to a friend's house with a Link figure in tow. Your friend has a Wii Fit trainer figure, and luckily, Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Each figure contains the spirit of the character they represent. So, when you touch an Amiibo to the Wii U gamepad, that character will appear in the game to do battle while you cheer it on from the sidelines. Just like the original concept for the Smash Bros. Series.
So it's augmenting this digital experience with a physical device. And around the exact same time that I was looking into that, I came across this other game called Drop Mix. And I actually have it up here. And if you stay until the end of the presentation, you can come up and play it yourself. Just saying. So this game, it's kind of similar. So there are these cards, and each card has a part of a song on it. And when you scan a card over this board right here, it starts playing the music. And when you scan multiple cards at once, you can create a mix-up like a DJ. Only you don't have to know how to be a DJ. You just put the cards over the board. So let me show you how that looks. That's my favorite part. Who doesn't love that song? Okay. I already ruined it. So you might be wondering, how does this work? Is it magic? Pretend you didn't see this slide. It's near-field communication. Near-field communication is a technology that allows for compatible devices to transfer information within a short distance. And the way it works, if you get into the nitty-gritty, it's a little complicated, but to boil it down, electromagnetic induction. So you all have smartphones in the crowd, right? So most of the newer phones have NFC on the phone. I don't know how many of you use it, but your phone acts as an NFC reader, and when you bring it near an NFC device, it puts out an electric field which activates an NFC tag and pulls the data from the NFC tag back to the NFC reader. So technology is wild. That just blows my mind. So that is the technology that powers the game that we created called Resolver. It's all about resolving customer issues. And I've created a little video that quickly goes through how this game would be administered in a classroom.
To create competition, we take a classroom full of new customer service agents and break them into 2 teams. Each team sends one player to the front of the room. One player is the customer and the other the agent. Then, we gamify the activity by having the customer roll a 3-sided die to see what level difficulty customer scenario the agent will support and how many points they can win. In this example, it lands on a 1, so the customer selects a level 1 difficulty scenario card. They scan the card over the card reader, and a corresponding slide pops up in the game where the agent gets to see and hear the customer's issue. A novel experience, as most people haven't had experiences where physical media can influence a digital application. Then, we scaffold the answer selection by providing the agent with 3 corresponding response cards where they scan the correct response over the card reader. Again, a corresponding slide pops up in the game where the agents get to see and hear the agent's response and how the customer would respond to this response. Then, the agent is provided with feedback regarding whether the response was correct. Each player gets a chance to play a customer scenario, and at the end, the team with the most points wins.
So that's like a quick and dirty version of how the game is played. And you might be wondering, well, what was learner feedback from playing the game? And they actually really enjoyed it. I say that like I'm surprised, but they did. They really enjoyed it. And for a lot of the reasons that we set out to solve for. So I think that from the agent feedback that I received, they liked that we were providing them with responses so that they could look at these cards and instead of struggling to come up with their own custom response when they have no experience in this role, they could instead use their cognitive resources to think which one by deduction sounds like the right response. And then once they got that right response, they were able to speak it out loud and hear it on the game and model that correct behavior. And because they had never seen a game like this before in their life, where you scan a card and things pop up on the screen, it was very engaging for them. They're like, what is this? What is this thing? They like the competitiveness of breaking the classroom into teams and competing against their peers. And they like the gamification element of it, where you'd roll a die, and that determines how many points you could potentially win and beat out the other team. So they really like these parts of the game. But as learning professionals, we're all too familiar that in a corporate setting, what really matters is none of this, right? What really matters is business results. At least that's what I've been told by someone. Now that's what matters. And so Kim, our Director of Learning and Quality, she would love to share with you a little bit about what we found. So go ahead.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, so I'm the one that gets to talk about results, right? Because I'm the one that has to deliver them. Otherwise, I'm the one that gets in trouble when it doesn't actually happen. So just for a little context, I think it would be helpful to understand that from a results perspective, Jonathan talked about customer satisfaction, which we know everybody has that metric, right? Everybody has that as a KPI. We're all trying to make sure the customer's happy. We're doing everything we can to make sure we get the survey back that says we will recommend you to our friends and our family and everybody else that we can think of, right? But the reality of the interaction between a representative, a customer service rep, and a customer is it's difficult to control. And the reality is it could go any direction. And even if we do a good job, we still may not get a good survey back. And even if we do a horrible job, oddly enough, we still sometimes get a good survey back on that. So I don't know that there's always 100% rhyme or reason at that sort of point of contact. And so for us, I think it's very early in what we've developed in terms of how it's going to relate ultimately to improve customer satisfaction. But that's the game we're all in, right? That's what we're trying to do. So in respect of that, we do believe that if you can provide more engaging interactions in the classroom, and you can help agents in a situation select the right path to go in terms of solving a customer problem, which at Expedia Group, when they call us, it's because something probably went wrong, right? Because we can't self-serve on the site. Who uses Expedia? Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate that. Keep doing that if you don't mind. I don't think we're supposed to do that. So anyway, sorry about that. What happens if something doesn't go right, you have to call us, and we've got to figure out how to help you. And some things you just can't do online, and so you have to call us for help. And so in those scenarios, there's a number of different paths that an agent could potentially follow. So our goal is to try to get that interaction to be as good as we can get it. And even if the answer is no, or we can't help in the particular situation, like they want us to refund a hotel that it was in cancel policy and they knew it, and they signed it up and they booked it anyway, and now they want to cancel and it's inside cancel policy and we have to say no, we still need to make that a good interaction for them. So we base our learning on scenarios, which is what Jonathan talked about in the Resolver game, and we focus our agents on Resolver attributes. What are the types of attributes that customers want us to demonstrate for them? Like, confidence in what we're doing, the ability to solve problems, fix my problem, right? Empathy is sort of it's still there, but it's kind of like that's not, when you call, do you want someone to just be sorry that something happened to you? I don't. I just want you to fix my problem, right? I don't really care if you're sorry, necessarily. So we're trying to instill these kind of what we call Resolver attributes, which is why the name Resolver has come up. So what we've done early, so I just preface all that to say I don't have a lot of major results to show you yet, but what we did was what we called an A/B test, and probably many of you do this, but Expedia Group has a very rich test and learn culture. And we're allowed to basically test anything. If we have the right hypothesis, we're given leeway to really go out and try new and different things, and fail fast. If it's not going to work, let's fail fast and get out. But let's see where we can kind of do some new things. So we did an A/B test in the classroom environment. So I know, again, also like Jonathan said, this is a technology conference, but in reality, who's still doing classroom training? Yeah. Who's still doing role plays in their training? Yeah. Right? So we all like to think that we're going to do this really kind of cool, amazing technology training. The reality is sometimes we can do it, but a lot of times we're still just doing some of the basic stuff. So we had to get that part better, which is why we isolated for the role play. So we did this A/B test in our classrooms with 2 classes, multiple classes actually. And what we did was we had 20 role play scenarios that we asked the agents to participate in. One was traditional role play. So here's the scenario, you be the customer, you be the agent, you be the observer, or the coach, or whatever, right? You guys know that, the triad, everybody knows that, right? And so we had one class do that. We had another class going at a similar same time that was able to play the Resolver game. And there was competition, and they were able to use the cards, and they were able to select scenarios. Same 20 scenarios, but they were just put in the game format, right? So we did the test, and when we assessed them afterwards on how much they've learned, this is a level 2 assessment, what we found is in the class that did traditional role play, they assessed out at 68% average score. The same class, same time period, same course curriculum, same everything else, assessed out at 81%. So right, do the math, 13% difference. Clearly some learning happened. There's questions, and I'm sure you'll ask me those questions about retention and all of that stuff and how it relates to customer satisfaction. And honestly, we don't know yet. But what we do believe is that we're on to something here. We've got to follow these paths now, and we've got to understand what this change means for the future. maybe things will stay the same. Maybe customer sat isn't going to dramatically increase. Maybe it will. So we're going to watch it as it goes. But the question for us is, if we drive a better experience in the classroom, in traditional things like role play, are we going to get a better output? What do you think? It's possible, right? It was worth trying. And if you can invest a little bit in testing out and playing around with some new technologies that help the actual in-classroom experience, wouldn't it be worth maybe looking into? Yeah. So that's what we chose to do. Again, we're a big tech company. You would think we would build this really cool, amazing technology, right? What we do for the customers, for the big platform that we have. My team doesn't get a lot of text time. So what we have to do is we have to figure out on our own how to do some of these things. So that's kind of where we're at. We're sort of at this crossroads to watch how this might work for us in the future. Because, ideally, if we can continue to drive that engagement, we think that's where some real success can be found. So that's kind of where we're at. I think your next slide is going to go into how this actually works, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
So and the question is, now do you want to know how to build it?
Yeah.
Yourself?
How many of you in the room?
Inexpensively?
How many of you in the room are instructional designers? Oh, that's everyone, almost. That's awesome.
And again, quick disclaimer, we do not have stock in any of these, in Amazon or in DropMix or any of these things that we're showing you. They were simply inspirational for us. So we're not selling any of this stuff. That's our disclaimer.
I mean, we are from Seattle.
Well, we should have bought stock.
I wish. So it's exciting that you guys, most of you are instructional designers, because what that means is that if you want to, you can easily go back to wherever you work and implement something similar to this. It's not that difficult, and I'm about to show you how. So there's a website called boardgamesmaker.com where you can print out the cards. And by the way, I should preface this by saying I have a PowerPoint deck up on DevLearn's website, so you don't have to frantically write this all down. Like, you can download the PowerPoint deck and it has everything up there for you, just to save you some time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so you go on the website, and it gives you an Adobe Illustrator file for the cards. So you just load that into Adobe Illustrator, and you design a front and a back, any way you want. And it tells you exactly how to do it with the template. And you need a front and a back, because what you're going to do is sandwich an NFC tag inside of it like a cookie, an Oreo cookie. Yes. And once you've designed your cards, you'll need some NFC tags. And you can buy the cheapest ones you can find online, because the memory storage on the chips, on the NFC tags themselves, it's irrelevant. You don't need that much memory. So cheapest NFC tags you can buy, go for it. I think I bought 100 for about 20 bucks, but you can get even better deals in bulk quantity. You also need a laminator, and that's to hold it all together, and a paper trimmer to cut it out with the laminate. You need a NFC card reader to plug into your computer so it can interface with the storyline. And you need the activity itself that I built in Storyline. And I'm not going to bore you with the details of how I built it, because that wouldn't be fun. But I will tell you on a very high level how it works, and I think it will make logical sense to many of you. So, inside these cards, I need to go over here. Inside these cards, there's the NFC tag, right? And each NFC tag has a unique ID number, unique to the card. And so when this NFC tag goes over the card reader, it brings that number into Storyline and submits an enter key. That's what the card reader does. By default, when you scan it over, it brings the number in and submits an enter key on your keyboard. So when that happens, I have like a number input box set up in Storyline for it to catch the number. And when that happens, I have a trigger for every single card. And the trigger basically says, oh, when I see the number for this card, jump to the corresponding slide. And that's it. It just jumps to that slide. Does that make, I think that makes sense. I like seeing the heads nod, that's great. Cool. So it really isn't that complicated. And it's a really interesting, novel way to interface with Storyline. I've been building courses in that program for a long time, and it's nice to be able to somehow interact with it with physical media. It's bridging that gap. So, in conclusion, I guess what I would like to say is that we saw this potential need for our role-playing activity, and we thought, hey, maybe this technology could serve a role in making it more engaging and solving other issues as well. And so we experimented with it. And I'm not saying, oh, you have to go out and do this now because this is the way. Maybe it's not. But I hope that this session has inspired you to reevaluate the training that you're currently working on and look out into the world and see all these amazing emerging technologies that are out there. And think, how could I somehow incorporate this into what I'm doing and measure its effect and the results of that and see if you can make a difference with it. Because that's what DevLearn's all about. And I leave you with a quote, just that. If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we rob our children of tomorrow. Thank you.
So we're going to take some time for question and answer, and we built the session this way purposely, so leave a lot of time for discussion, and so you can come up and see some of the physical tools that we have.
You can play the game.
But if you can just join me in thanking Jonathan. This is his first ever presentation at DevLearn.
Actually, my first presentation.
This is his first conference attendance ever.
Yes.
And I love how he says he's been creating in Storyline for a really long time, which is probably 2 years, because he's only like 12. So.
No, I've been working as an instructional designer for about 8 or 9 years.
I mean, gosh, it's like a lifetime.
Yeah.
So we have, like we said, the inspirational tools that we have here, and we'd love to open up the game itself and show you, if you want to open and show some of the cards of the Resolver game itself.
Sure.
We can do that.
Sure.
And then we can take any questions that you have. So, yeah, start from the back and work our way forward. Yeah, you raise your hand first.
Is the NFC functionality, the reader within Storyline, is that built in, or is there like a plugin that you need to access in order to have access to that in Storyline?
So this is the reader, and when this is plugged into your computer and a card passes over the reader, it pulls the number on the NFC tag in the card. It pulls that number into Storyline. Like if you publish a course out, then that course is highlighted, right? It's like selected. So it'll pull that number in to the number input box inside of your published Storyline course. And so once that number shows up, this thing submits an enter on the enter key on the keyboard, and then you can set up a trigger for something to happen when it sees that number.
Got it.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool.
So the course just has to be like active, like your cursor has to be in, that's the active box.
Yes, but there's actually a hack.
Oh.
There's a hack that I found. I think it works. If you use Storyline, you probably are very frustrated with this program because a lot of stuff doesn't work the way it's supposed to. But apparently, if you put the number input box, maybe you should write this down. If you put the number input box on the very bottom of in your timeline as an element, I think if it's on the very bottom, it's by default selected. So you don't have to highlight it. It works most of the time. It works like 90% of the time. But every once in a while, it doesn't work. You have to go manually select the number input box. But that's what when I went on the Articulate forums, that's the answer I found.
I think you had your hand up.
You feel it.
Yeah, I was going to ask about, sorry if you mentioned this and I missed it, the badge reader or scanner is a great way to go, but with so many phones having NFC in them,
Yes.
have you explored how viable that can be? Like,
Yes.
is that something that people can use easily, or are we going to have people going to go in and edit their settings, and is that a total pain? Like, you think that's going to be something that could be the phase 2?
So my first thought was, we could publish courses mobily on the smartphone and then use the NFC readers inside of a smartphone to interact with Storyline, mobily. But
Except, yes. So in our environment, so I think the short answer is it could be done.
it can be
In
done.
our environment, we have a no device policy in our outsourced call centers. We don't allow agents to have any device to be able to record any customer data in the compliance world that we live in, and so we can't use it, but it could be used.
Yeah. Hypothetically, that's a very interesting path to go down, and I implore you to try it out. Yes.
Okay.
This is a really good setup and how you did that. And how many did you make? Like, I'm just thinking scale-wise.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a lot of places to go or to deliver
Yes.
the content, how did you do that, or is that something you have to kind of figure out on your own if you're scaling?
So I definitely have thought about this as well, and we only have created about 3 or 4 copies of of this for a prototype, and Expedia has upwards of 60 call centers all over the world. So in order to scale it out to 60 call centers, I need 60 versions, which is doable. It's not that complicated to make the game. It's a little, you gotta get the cards printed and laminate them and cut them out and then code them. But my 2.0 idea is to basically make all of the content live within Storyline's activity, and then have a few cards that allow you to kind of vote for which one you want. Maybe like an option A card, an option B card, an option C card. And then that way the content isn't static and stuck to the cards themselves. And then the technology can be used over and over again, no matter how the scenarios change in the future.
Yeah, scale is our question too, and we literally are in prototype and testing, and we're still in classrooms right now, but it's something we need to solve for. We think that might be one way to do it.
But if you want to make it for just like one classroom, you can just put it all the content on the cards.
Yes.
So you bought the tags in bulk. Are they pre-programmed with numbers on them?
Yes. Yes, great question. So each NFC tag comes pre-programmed with a unique identifier number that cannot be removed. It's permanently burned into the tag itself.
And that's the only tag anywhere that has that number?
Hypothetically.
Okay.
Yes, for security reasons, it would be very, very difficult to spoof it. I mean, I guess it's possible, but it's very unlikely. So you can use the numbers on the tags themselves to identify them inside Storyline, no programming required. But if you wanted to go a step further, all these smartphones, they have NFC programs on them that you can download from the store that allow you to send data to them and like program them yourself. You can put anything you want on them. So for example, when the session's over, I have cards, you can check me out on LinkedIn, and I have NFC tags inside of them. And if you scan it with your phone, it will take you to my LinkedIn page. So what I did is I used my phone to program my website on the NFC tag itself. So if you wanted to, think about what you could program onto an NFC tag that you'd want Storyline to receive. What kind of data would you want to send to it? For the purposes of this, I just wanted to use the cards to link to different slides. And for that, you can just use the number on the card.
And do those, I mean, there's no power source with those. How long does that information last on the tag?
There's no power source on the tags, right?
Right.
Yes. Isn't that wild that they can power up? That's what I'm still getting over that. So they're called. Those are called. The tags are passive. There's two different types of NFC technology, passive and active. And I didn't want to bore you with getting into the details of this, but like passive devices have they only send information to something that's powering it up. So, from my understanding, they have a long shelf life, not dissimilar to a solid-state hard drive. Right, like those don't have any power, but you power them up. You provide power to them.
We appreciate the magic of the things we don't fully understand. What other questions?
Did you want to show us under the hood?
We have a question back there, and then
the card readers are about, I think they're about $12, $13 on Amazon.
Is it in the?
Yeah, it's on the PowerPoint deck. So if you go back and look it up on the right there we go. I think it's 16 new, but I found them in bulk. So if you're looking to provide this as a learning solution for a lot of different classrooms, then you can definitely get a deal on a lot of this stuff. I'd also like to say, while I have all your attention, because it didn't really flow with my presentation, but there are 3 ways that I used NFC tag technology in my own personal life before I started going down this path of using it towards a solution for learning. And the first one is I take an NFC tag and I put it on the other side of my bedroom, and I programmed it to disable my alarm on my phone. And so the only way I can turn off my alarm when I wake up in the morning is I have to get out of bed and go all the way to the end of the bedroom and scan my phone. And otherwise you can't turn it off. I guess you could turn the phone off and then turn it back on, but technically you can't turn it off. So like there are these little interesting things that you can do with these tags once you program them. I think I put another one for another NFC tag in my house. I put my SSID, like my Wi-Fi and my password on it. And so when anyone comes over as like a guest, they can scan the tag and it automatically connects them to my internet. They don't have to ask for the password, they just scan their phone. Another thing that I did is I put an NFC tag on my phone dock in my car, and I programmed that tag to automatically open Google Maps and put in my home address and click start, so I don't have to do any of that. So every time I dock my phone, it's like, oh, this is how you get home from your current location, and then that way I don't get pulled over for texting and driving. Wonderful. So
I actually love millennials. They're so amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, you have another question.
I know we don't have a lot more time, but can you tell us briefly, do you have to use separate applications to partner with to pull off those tasks, or is that something you custom develop? How does that happen?
There is an application on my phone. I should have this. This is my bad. I should know the name of the app off the top of my head, but it is called, I think it's called NFC Tools, but I'm going to look real quick. It's called, yes, NFC Tools for Android. And I'm sure there are iPhone versions, but basically just Google NFC tool for your phone. And it's really simple because if your phone has NFC built in, there's like a little section where you can turn NFC on or off. And when you approach a tag, you can, there's a task section where you can just set up the task you want, and then it'll say write to tag. And you just put your phone over the tag and it writes that task to the tag, and then from there on out, all you have to do is put your phone over the tag and it'll automatically happen.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah.
Your business cards, you said your website is on the card. Is it linking to your website, or do you actually have the files on there? Like, can you put all the folders?
Oh, so you could have offline.
Yeah.
You could. I didn't do that. Mine requires an internet connection. But you definitely can do that. So some of the ways that I've seen this being used in the example that you just provided is if you go to, say, the Eiffel Tower, right? And you have no internet connection, but you see a little NFC icon. You can scan your phone over it, and a video will pop up about the Eiffel Tower. And that video is data that's been burned into the tag itself, and no internet connection required.
So you could put storyline, like a storyline folder right into the tag then?
You could put a published mobile storyline course inside a tag with no internet connection. Yes. We haven't tried that. We need to try that.
No, we need to write that down. I'm like,
So that
gotta write
you
that
mentioned
down.
before that there were, you could get
Yeah.
the cheapest tags that
Yes.
have no memory.
Yes.
And that would require memory.
It'll probably require. I don't know how much memory it would require. It probably depends on how much multimedia you would include in the published storyline file. But our bottleneck is, since we work in a call center, we can't do mobile. But if you don't do that, then you should try that out. That's really interesting.
one more question, and then we want to leave time for you to come up and play the games and get Jonathan's card and all that. He didn't make me a card, by the way. Go ahead.
This sounds very similar to QR codes.
Yes.
So what would you say is like the biggest difference between using the NFC tag versus like a QR code?
That's a good question.
Well, you'd have to bring out the camera app. So you'd have to have a camera app. That'd be one thing. So for our purposes, we wouldn't be able to do something like that.
Right, because we
Right.
don't scan. We couldn't scan.
Right. So it's a way to interact without that having to have camera hardware. And there's a lot of confusion around all these different types of transmission, wireless transmission, like RFID. NFC is actually within the family of RFID. It's very similar. Or Bluetooth. Some people have asked, why not use Bluetooth instead? But with Bluetooth, you have to set it up, and then it takes a few seconds, where this is instantaneous. But QR is very similar. And I would think that if your learners were able to interact with a camera device, then that's an option as well, for sure.
But that would be online. And the NFC is offline, potentially.
It has potential to be offline, where a QR code, there's no data can be stored on a QR code, where data can be stored inside an NFC tag. Yeah.
I think you also have
That's a good point.
That's probably
the
the biggest
tangibility of NFC. You can hide them and bury them, put them in places where you wouldn't expect them.
Mhm.
The QR code is a relatively ugly piece of
Visual. You
visual.
have to actually do something with
show
it.
it there. But
We used to use them in a previous world. Some of my previous world people are here, where we used to have them when we would do like an expo, like we have here, and we wanted to track people through the expo, and we wanted to provide them links to collateral information from that particular vendor. We would have them scan QR codes at each vendor, and we would track them that way, and then they could get links to their information. that's pretty much the way we used it. I don't think we did anything else. I'm looking at my previous colleague here.
If you have any other questions, feel free to network with us on
Please.
social media.
Yeah, we're happy
I
to
had
take any
my-
other questions and come play some games. Come check this out if you want to. And thank you very much for your questions and your attention. And Jonathan, thank you again.
Yes, thank you.